Anthony P. Garcia, catapulting commissions all the way from Bakersfield. Man, welcome to the Sales Podcast. How the heck are you?
Wes, I'm doing wonderful, man. There's no place I'd rather be than right here with this show, your audience, man. Thanks for having me, bud.
All right, we're going to see if that's true, man, or if that's just, platitude. But I mean, flattery it'll get you far, all right? I'm not immune to it, all right?
All right.
So what's up with this, huh? Catapulting commission. That's your business. You got a podcast called that. We just talked last week.
Mm-hmm.
What's the deal? You work is it primarily with like contractors, or do you work with anybody in sales?
Yeah, I work predominantly with service-based, I call them salespreneurs. So it's a coin, or it's a term I think I coined. I haven't seen anyone else say it, but I've been saying it for years. I work with the service-based salespreneurs. So either high-performing sales reps that make majority of their income or all of their income from the sales they work, or like the small business owner that is still responsible for generating sales, and they're kind of like that founder-led sales team. But it has to be, majority of the work I do is within the service space. The name Catapulting Commissions came up. I wrote a book a couple of years ago under the same moniker, and it really has kind of, I trademarked the name and I ran with it. So we've, the Catapulting Commissions podcast. I do a group coaching program called the Catapulting Commissions Academy. I think I have every variation of Catapulting Commissions, the domain, in my GoDaddy account. So it's just, I've kind of been running with it.
How did you end up with that focus?
So when I wrote, it's really interesting, right? So when I first wrote the book Catapulting Commissions, I wrote a book that I wanted to share what I did in my career as a corporate sales rep and how to duplicate that level of success. And it really became a goal-setting book for sales professionals. And at that time, I was in medical device sales, and I was doing well. I mean, I made more money than I ever had. I had income that was putting me in the top 1% tax bracket. Things were going well. And so I took a look back and I said, okay, let me document how I did this. So I wrote that whole book out, came out, and then I was like, what am I going to do with this book? So started sharing the book, started giving this goal-setting speech to different corporations, different companies, to their sales force. And, I left corporate. And I still continued working in this space of giving this inspirational message to sales performers. Well, through the podcast, which is going on its fourth year, I started getting DMs and really DMs and emails from small business owners who were listening to my show. And a small business owner reached out and asked to book a call on my calendar, and we chatted. And he was point blank, said, hey, I'm struggling to not only to generate sales, but I don't even know how to crack into the market I'm supposed to be in. And this was a couple of years ago, and I'll share the industry, and it was not my primary focus at the time, but he was trying to crack into high-end, didn't even know this was an industry until I met him, high-end windshields for RVs, tractors, semis. Apparently it's a big business to be the person that replaces these windshields. Mm-hmm. I didn't know anything about the industry. And I was really honest. I was like, hey man, I don't know anything about the industry, but I know sales, I know human psychology, and I know business. So, I was honest. I was like, if you want to kind of beta test this, let's work on something together. So we worked together. I charged him the least amount I ever charged anybody. I was able to get him into several big accounts throughout the country, grow his numbers. And I was like, I really enjoyed that. Another call came a little later, and someone was asking me to help them with their financial services business. It's like, okay, never really worked in the financial services space. But again, I know sales, I know business, I know human psychology. Made him incredibly successful. And I found a certain joy working with the professional services as opposed to the retail transaction. And that's the ball that got the ball that got the game going, and I ran with it ever since.
So you're in corporate America. I mean, why the shift, right? Why not go after big business and help people, 10 years behind you in the corporate space?
So, I started my career selling. I mean, I sold Cutco kitchen knives. That was like how I cut my teeth in sales, and I did that for 6 years. So when people are like, "Oh, I sold kitchen knives for a summer," I'm like, I did it for 6 years. I did 3 years as a rep, and then I franchised, got my own office, had my own sales team of 100 sales reps for 3 years. I left that, went into working in the B2B services for, what is,
So what? Well, all right. You keep on.
No,
keep
go ahead.
going down web, man. Why'd you let that go? We love our Cutco knives.
Yeah. Oh, so, the reason I let Cutco go, at the time, you're 1099 in Cutco, right? So I was a young kid, I was 23, 24, making, I had a team that was generating, a good 7 figures in annual revenue. I was getting my percentage. I was making more money than I ever thought was humanly possible. I just didn't know, and I know this sounds silly now, but a 22-year-old, 23-year-old version of Anthony never really thought about paying taxes as a 1099. I just didn't really have a tax strategy. CPA, it was just like, oh, I'll let him go. And lo and behold, I spent more money than I was supposed to. Didn't have enough money to cover payroll. I was avoiding my landlord. I couldn't pay the lease on my building. It was bad. And when that was combining, the IRS levied my account. It was just like within a span of 3 weeks, it was just one after the other after the other. And I was like, oh my goodness. It really kicked me in my face, man. I felt like a failure. I was like, I messed up. So why did I close down? I kind of put myself in a bad hole. So that was why I closed down. And at the time, I was going to close down. I was going to move back home with mom, and I was just going to go be a regular Cutco sales reps, and just kind of acknowledge that I couldn't run the team anymore. I couldn't run the business anymore. I didn't have money for the overhead. I blew all the money, and I was like, I was just going to go and sell. And I quickly, in a span of like 6 weeks from the day I closed my business, I quickly generated 20K in income. And I was like, okay, I'm going to figure out what to do next.
Doing Cutco sales?
Yeah, individual Cutco sales. I was day to night calling everybody and anybody, cutting my teeth. I was like, who will listen to me? I will sell. And then I found out I was going to be a father. And so then when I found out I was going to be a father, I was like, all right, I got to kind of keep working this thing out and seeing what's next. So that was how I ended up leaving Cutco, got an opportunity to work in a B2B segment and selling payroll services. And I did that for about 4 years.
Dang, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you find out you're having a kid, that kind of changes things, doesn't it?
Oh, instantly. The killer part was that whole IRS levy. It took the 4 years of me working B2B to finally pay those guys back to leave me alone. It took a long time. I remember trying to negotiate with them, and it was like, hey, kid, like, you're 24, 25, you're healthy, you're educated. We'll wait. It was like there was no settlement, like you're not in bad shape, like we're gonna collect. And sure, didn't even know they have that long of a payment plan, but they sure did, and they took their money every month, so I paid them off. But I learned from that. Never have I ever been in that, or will I ever be in that position again. I always make sure I'm taken care of.
Were you incorporated?
At that time, I was not. I was just the sole prop, wasn't incorporated, and didn't really have any separation. That came to bite me in the butt, right? Like, didn't personal account, bank account, everything ran through one account. It was like the wild, wild west, man. I had no structure. So
and it's a shame too that like Cutco corporate or whatever, wouldn't help like give advice, to young guys. You're sitting there making a killing, you're helping them.
Yeah.
Maybe you wouldn't listen. I mean, when you're young, you don't listen. We were having a conversation the other night. My son was over. He just turned 25. And we were talking about he was stubborn, right? He was great at baseball. He's a great athlete overall, but baseball was his thing. But I played football, played in college. And so that was always his thing. And I never pushed it. I wouldn't even let him play until 8th grade.
Oh, wow.
And he was saying, I'm going to tell my kids, this, that, and the other. And I said, dude, we told you the same thing. How'd that work out? Right? Like, you don't listen. When you're young, you don't listen.
Well, to Cutco's defense, I definitely didn't listen. So I was given the number to incorporate in an LLC. They helped me set me up with a bookkeeper that, was really managing the books, and I was supposed to have weekly P&L calls. I always made an excuse why I had to cancel them. Like, there was just, they gave me all the tools, but I didn't take advantage of any of them. And when I closed down, my mentor, who's still a good friend of mine to this day, he just sat there. He's like, this is a hard lesson for me to watch, because you had all the direction, you just didn't execute, and you'll bounce back. And then I remember the conversation, you'll bounce back, and I definitely bounced back. And I'm thankful I had that experience. I wasn't thankful then, but I'm definitely thankful now.
Yeah. Well, and it's true. And especially when you're young, because my son, I mean, I got 2 boys, 5 girls, and they each go through challenges here and there. My second son, he's in real estate, and things were going well, then things go sideways and back and forth. And I'm like, you're going to make it. These things you go through, they suck at the moment. But they do make you tougher, right?
Oh, yeah.
They prepare you for bigger things to come, because if you're worried about one deal going sideways, then, how are you going to close 10 deals? How are you going to close 100? How are you going to have 10 people closing 1,000? You gotta take the lumps, huh?
You have to. And I think in order for me to experience the level of success I did when I got into medical, because after Kirko, I had a 4-year spent in payroll. Then I got into medical. I spent a decade in surgical sales, in surgery, in operating rooms. It was a blast. But in order for me to get the level of success there, I think I had to experience that failure, because it was humbling. It really kind of kicks you in the face. And at the same time, it taught me, like, the only way to get out of it was hard work. So I remember closing it down. I was like, I have no money. Mom said she's not lending me any money. I got a tank full of gas and maybe $300, and I got a set of kitchen knives and a cell phone that works. Let's figure this bad boy out. And I ran rampant. Like, everyone and anyone who had ever indicated they had any interest in Cutco received a phone call from me. I was knocking doors. And to get that level and make that money that fast was like, okay, have a skill set. Find out that I was having a child. I was like, all right, let me see if I can get a job with benefits. I mean, I lasted on the job market for a week and a half. And then, from there, I never looked for another job ever since. It was just the high income skill of sales. And I think combination with the humbling experience of getting your teeth kicked in at a young age, the work ethic was ingrained in me.
When times are tough, right? When you get that back against the wall situation, some people can become desperate, and when you're desperate, you can't give it away.
Mm-hmm.
How did you handle that? Do you think because you had experience, you were able to remain confident? Did you ever feel desperate, right? Because, I mean, if you sold your way out of it, then you must have come across fine.
Yeah.
I'm getting at?
Yeah. So definitely felt desperate and back against the wall, felt uncomfortable, felt like I was losing everything. The 2 things that really helped me out in that situation: one, outside of me closing down that business, my expenses were low. The one message that I did take from my mentor, and he had shared with me, to live like a college kid as long as possible. So the only bill outside of the business that I had closed and the apartment that I couldn't afford anymore, so I got rid of all of that. The only bill I had was my cell phone bill, and that was it. Car was paid off. And I had cheap insurance because the car was paid off, but I had liability only. I mean, I was kind of living by the skin of my teeth. So that helped. And then the other component was, I just remember having a conversation with my mom, tears in my eyes, and I'm like, I failed. And mom kind of does what mom does, builds you up. But at the end, she said, she says, you've developed a skill that everybody wishes they had. You've been told no more times than you told yes, and you showed up for work every day. And not only did you show up for work, you loved it. You continue to do it. She's like, do what you do best. Go out there, make sales, have fun with it. And it quickly was, let me work. And so when I went through that phase, I wasn't looking for the money, even though I knew the money was a byproduct. I was just looking for the day. And I was just trying to win the day. I was trying to win the hour. I mean, my goals were simple. It was like, let me just win this next call. Let me win this afternoon. And that really kind of kept me pretty laser focused. And in that, I guess, and let me put timing, in the middle of that process is when I found out that I was going to be a father. And there's no responsibility booster like that one, where it was like, oh, now failure wasn't an option. So that was another motivator.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So you're banging it out, you're getting it done. You know, what led you out of that? Because a lot of times people kind of settle.
Yeah.
Like you're in a rhythm and like, hey, I'll just stick with this.
Art shows this when we.
So I had known at that time I wanted to break into a higher level sale. You know, at that time, selling Cutco, like in the current dating market, I have a lot of friends selling Cutco who made a career living at Cutco. Like they're called Cutco sales professionals. They, you know, they're making well over 6 figures a year, and they're, I mean, high 6 figures, some are 7. Like they're crushing it. At that time, that program was kind of being developed. Like Cutco was mostly a college kid thing. There weren't too many people that were doing it for a living. So I knew I wanted to take that experience from Cutco, and I wanted to. My goal was to be an entrepreneur, but I knew that I had so much debt piled up from Uncle Sam that, or I guess that was the only debt that I was avoiding. I knew I had Uncle Sam waiting for me, that I had to get something that was stable, predictable, and the health benefits. At the time, I'm like, okay, I have a kid, I need to get insurance. You know, and that's what led me to, okay, let me get a corporate job, because I wanted to break into what I thought was pharma or software or agriculture sales, something that had, you know, a high comp plan. And, you know, I interviewed for a couple companies, and surprisingly at that time, I was told that my Cutco experience would translate over. And it was tough. I interviewed for several pharmaceutical companies that just, I would get far in the interview and then, oh, no, you don't have experience, you don't have experience. So I went to a B2B services, and I went in as an entry-level sales rep. I remember the salary was like 30K or 29K or something like that. And, you know, you make the majority of your money on commission. First year, I learned the ropes. You know, I kind of followed their sales training methodology, which I really didn't care for, but I followed the rules, went to my manager, said, hey, I think there's some things that I can implement a little bit different. Are you okay if I make some changes on my own to my own sales process? She told me as long as I got results. From that point forward, I hit President's Club 3 years in a row, and I was going to stay there. I wanted to move into management. Management opportunity wasn't available for me. I interviewed and was told, hey, you know, I think the timing's right. You know, that afternoon, I got a phone call from a headhunter that wanted me to move into medical device sales, not pharma. I told her no, I wasn't interested. She called me back. She told me the comp plan is this. Am I sure? Do I want to reject it? And she told me a number that I had never made. And I was like, I'm interested. So went, interviewed in medical device. I remember going into medical device, and when I interviewed, they told me the comp plan was 150K if I hit quota. And I'm like, I always hit above quota. And they're like, well, then you make more than that. So interviewed, got to the interview, the final with the president of the company. He looked me in the face, said, if you make less than 120 or 130, he's like, we're probably going to fire you. I'm like, wow, this is where I want to be. And from that point forward, I had, you know, this was 11, 12 years ago. I had never made less than 200K, and that number got significantly higher throughout the years. So that's how I ended up in medical, and which ironic, I ended up moving into management there. And when I got into management, I actually interviewed a pharmaceutical manager that wanted to break into device that was on the team that rejected me many years earlier. And he didn't remember, but I definitely remembered. And, you know, that didn't influence my decision whether to offer him the job or not, but it was how quick the tables turned. You know, because I stand by what I'm about to say, and we may offend a pharmaceutical sales person listening. The medical device sales reps, those are like sales reps. The pharmaceutical sales reps, they're Panera deliverers. So yeah, that was, you know, I remember having the conversation with the pharma guy. I was like, I got to be honest with you, man. The last big client I closed down when I was an individual contributor, I stood outside his car, outside the hospital, 5 a.m., 4 days a week for almost a month, until he finally gave me 20 minutes to talk to him. Are you prepared to do that? Because if you're not, I don't think this is the right fit for you.
So would he get there at 5 a.m. and not talk to you?
Oh, he would see me and walk past me. And it
Mm.
would be, hey doc, it's like, on my way to a case. All right. Hey doc, and I would strategically position where I would stand. So like I knew where the doctors parked their car. So I didn't want to be like right in the parking lot, but I would be like in the entryway where cars would like, you have to walk in, casually like on my phone. And then I would casually be near the locker room. Like I always found my way to be in a casual place. Until he finally, literally, he looked at me. He's like, "Are you just here for me?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Come on and let's talk." and that was like, and we chatted and we had a good conversation. He ended up becoming a client, doing business. But that strategy in that industry, man, I duplicated it up and down the state. I could tell you the best hiding spots in certain hospitals around California.
Man, I did some similar things. I was in telecom and test and measurement, and I learned I damn near took up smoking just so I could hang out, but I would just walk around in the back, hang out with all the smokers, man. And I got more intel from the smokers. They'd let me in the back door because I'd be hanging out like I own the place. And I just, oh, come on in. I'd walk in right behind them and I'm in the building. I could go call in who I wanted to see.
It's funny. The people, when you call on businesses, some of the people, like the smokers, the staff, the dock workers, the janitors, the security guards, you spend time with those people and just have conversations with them, you'll learn so much.
Oh, dude.
Yeah. I did. I went in through a couple service entrances at a couple of hospitals that, weren't quote unquote vendor friendly, but I knew, I'm like, oh, if I just come to the service entrance, put my scrubs on, walk in, say, "Hey, Bill, how's it going?" Bill's not going to stop me. And I just kind of, because he keeps seeing me come in with different people and you make your way back there.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. Yeah. Make friends with receptionists, the gatekeepers, the executive assistants. I tell people all the time, it's like, if I'm having a heck of a time reaching an executive, I'll do whatever. I press 1 for sales, I'll hit sales. And I've gotten guys on phones like, "Anthony, man, I'm trying to reach the president,
Yeah.
Like, I'm in sales, dude. I'm not a lead for you, but dude, how do I reach this guy?" And I've had people freaking give me cell phone numbers of executives. And like, "Dude, you didn't get it from me." It's like salespeople unite.
Yeah, man, that is awesome. I love that strategy.
Oh man. Well, that's cool, man. I kind of bounce around like that as well. But I mean, you were there almost 10 years, right? So what led you on to back to doing your own thing?
So it's a difficult. The decision wasn't taken lightly. I went from individual contributor then to managing a business unit, and I had an amazing team that worked for me. I didn't have a sales rep on my team that made less than 150 grand a year. I mean, I would take, I had reps that would come in. We had an associate, like an entry level position that would bridge, and I'll never forget. I hired a 22-year-old girl out of college, smart as rocks. My VP, my president was like, "There's no way she's the right associate. She doesn't have enough experience, doesn't have enough maturity." Lo and behold, they gave me the green light to hire her. And I'm like, "All right, I gotta make this kid worth it." 2 years later, we promoted her. She became rookie of the year, top 2% reps the whole company. I mean, made an astronomical amount of money. I saw her develop from a young kid to buying a home in Sherman Oaks and growing. And it was like, stuff like that made me want to stick with the company. The reason I left, as I started climbing the corporate ladder, I started spending more time in hotels. And I ended up becoming married, as my wife would tell me. I got married to Marriott, and now I'm a wife. And I think the last year it was like 149 nights in a Marriott hotel. And 365 days in a year. I had kids at home and a family. And I had two choices. I could return to be an individual contributor, or I can run and do my own thing. And at the end of the day, what I enjoyed about being in that position of leadership was the ability to influence and impact people. And when I made it to move into my own, that was the reason why, because I still have the ability to influence and impact people. And as an individual contributor, I had that opportunity, but not at the same scale as I do now.
Yeah. Why do you think that gal was successful?
Oh, she was a sponge, absolute sponge. When I offered her the job, and gave her the verbal offer over the phone, sent her everything. On our very first interaction that she met with me, I sat down and we were at the lobby of a hotel, and I said, "Hey, here's the deal. Gonna be really transparent. You're gonna be the youngest person that this company's ever hired. You're gonna go to sales training in 3 weeks. Again, you're gonna be the youngest person in the room. I want you to know this because I'm taking a chance on you. So my only ask is that you, as quickly as possible, learn everything there is to know about this business, about sales, and if something doesn't make sense, ask me." Had this conversation with her. 4 days later, she came back, read the entire book of spin selling, had a bazillion questions for me. I was like, okay. Gave her some medical information to read. Came back 2 days later, read the whole deal, and I'm like, okay. And I told her, I'm like, if you continue learning and retaining at this rate, it's only a matter of time before you get promoted. She went to the sales training class, 18 people in her class. She finished #1 out of 18 people. She wasn't a territory manager, she was the associate. And what made her excel was she became a sponge and had high work ethic. So, that strategy I shared with you about tracking down a surgeon, she had a really prominent academic facility in the Los Angeles area, I won't say the name, that was part of her accounts. And she had a influential surgeon there that was on her target list. And I shared with her, I said, hey, every territory manager we've had in this spot hasn't been able to convert this surgeon. He's going to blow you off. He's going to be really fast. He's going to not want to speak to you. And I said, I can share with you what I did to convert surgeons of his caliber in other places. It's not fun, but this is what I did. She looked me in the face. She said, I can do the same. And she did. And that's really where it was at. It was just a high level of work ethic and always learning, always learning.
Yeah. Nice. So, all right, you're there almost 10 years, but I mean, that's a big switch going from, I made that switch, making good money in corporate America to doing my own thing.
Yeah.
So walk me through how you did that.
Well, I knew, like I said, I made the decision. I knew I didn't want to go back to being an individual contributor. And I also knew that I didn't want to spend any more time on the road. Right. So, I had some discussions with my leadership team about what options existed. And, it was really either be an individual contributor or kind of deal with it. And, I came home and I was like, I don't want to deal with it. And some of the other positions that were available, same thing, kind of had a similar travel, maybe different responsibilities. So, it was a conversation at home with the wife. Like, I'm going to leave this stable, very well-paying job. And I remember when I had the discussion that I was going to leave, my VP told me, you're going to leave a job that people work their whole lives for, that want to work here. Your title in this company has clout, notoriety. Like, why, you're absolutely crazy. You want to walk away from this. And my response was, well, if it has the clout and notoriety, it'll also have it in 2 or 3 years from now if my business fails. Like, I believe my skill set will land me on my feet, either for myself or working for someone else if I have to go back to get another job. And that was it. All in. After everything was cut off and, severance and vacation time and all the final checks and all that fun stuff comes out, I was like, all right. So my wife, I said, I have no more money coming in, not a dollar coming in. Let's get some business. And that was it.
Yeah. So you didn't do like a little side hustle and try to get a little runway?
I did have a side hustle, but my side hustle was paying for the business. So my side hustle was paying for the podcast production. My side hustle was my side hustle was, probably bringing in 3 or 4K a month. And,
Not bad.
It was, it wasn't bad, but it was definitely substantially less than what I had been making prior. So yeah, that was the runway. And at that time, and still true to this day. Like I invest more into the business than I take home myself. And going with that approach is how the business has grown.
Yeah. And when was that? I mean, it wasn't too long ago, right?
No, the full-time venture, now it's been 12 months since it's been a full-time venture.
Oh,
A
wow.
little over 12 months. Yeah, January of last year was when the decision was made, and it took about almost a little under 90 days from conversation to final execution for it to be a full-time venture. But I pretty much those 90 days I wasn't working.
Yeah.
So
well, yeah, that's cool. So you were doing the podcast on the side. How long had you done that while you were still in corporate America?
Probably 2.5 years while I was in corporate America.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I did the podcast for a while. The podcast is what kind of raised eyebrows to like, hey, what are you doing? And I enjoyed podcasts.
What do you mean, from your employer or?
Yeah, they weren't too excited for it. But
why?
I went. So that's really, when I share that story, people are like, because I worked in the medical space in surgery. My podcast was just about sales, motivation, and goal setting. I never represented the company.
Sure.
Even as of to this day, I still don't consult in the medical space. Even though I've had opportunities to speak and train, I try to avoid it because it's hard for me to share certain things without, I draw that boundary line of like, what did I learn? What is mine? What did they? I avoid it.
Yeah. Sure.
But when I went to the podcast, I went to the compliance team. I said, hey, this is what I like to do. This is the book that I wrote. And we had a long conversation with the compliance team, had the legal team on. And at the end of the day, they said, it's no different than one of our internal scientists doing their own research paper and talking about it. You just can't represent the company, can't represent the company name. Great. Sure. I felt like it was good. My VP was like, if you're recording podcasts, how are you driving business? I was like, that doesn't make sense. Like I have a team. Like I'm not on every sales call and I'm recording podcasts on my own time. So it wasn't well received in the beginning. But it quickly.
Yeah. I mean, that's some dipshittery, man.
Oh yeah.
Like how frequent was your podcast? Was it weekly? Was it daily?
At that time, it was just a weekly, once a week podcast.
Yeah, it's like, give me a break, man.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, so like for free, you get to speak with someone that'll make you better for 30 minutes to an hour. And if you've got a support team, I mean, it takes you another 15 minutes of work to edit it. So it'd be like saying, you can't have an auto hobby on the side. I can't have you spending 10 hours on the weekend turning wrenches and tuning engines because you're a car guy. Like what?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you asked, I'll leave it at this. You asked one of the reasons why did I leave? That definitely had that was part of the influential reason why I felt it was appropriate to go do my own thing and help others, which was ironic, right? I ran this podcast and then internally the company wanted to run an internal podcast and they wanted somebody to interview the division CEOs. So essentially like, corporate structure, you have like the main CEO and then your division CEOs were like one layer down. But these were really, really high up people in board meetings on Wall Street. And they came to me and asked me to be the interviewer. And I was like, ironic. I'm like, 7-8 months ago, you were like, I hate that you're doing this, blah, blah, blah. Now you acknowledge I have a skill set for interviewing people. You want me to have these interviews. And, I did it and I played nice and I wanted the exposure. But yeah, I think everything happens for a reason. And I'm happy with where I'm at right
now. So you did that for a few years. How were you monetizing it? Were you just getting sponsors for the show or what?
So the monetization came through like individual coaching clients. So yeah.
So you were taking on like private. So that was an extension of your side hustle.
Correct. The extension of the side hustle was the private coaching clients. Yeah. Never took the sponsors on, but it was I had private coaching clients. I had speaking opportunities that would come up from it. I'd have training opportunities that would come up from it. So, somebody would call and say, hey, interested in having you speak at XYZ conference or for XYZ group. are you available? And I look at the date, and if it didn't interfere with my current quote unquote day job, I would go do it.
Yeah.
So that was kind of how I built that recurring revenue.
Did those coaching clients, did they know that you were still employed, and did they care?
Depending on the nature of how they came to me, a few I shared I was employed, a few in the conversation never came up. But my LinkedIn profile was accurate at that time. Like, you could tell that I was employed. I wasn't hiding anything. So yeah, kind of ran my side hustle till it became my main hustle.
That's cool. So as you now branch off and you're full time on your own, how did you know what to offer and how to price it? 'Cause I see most people struggle with that. They undervalue. I'm helping a friend right now create a self-defense and jujitsu training in your home business. He's not an entrepreneur at all. And he was so cheap, he literally he'd have wasted money just on gas. He literally would not have made a dime. And I'm having him charge like 6 or 7x.
Yeah.
He's like, what? Who's gonna pay that? I'm like, A, a lot of people will. B, if you don't charge that, you can't do it.
Yeah. So to figure out the structure of charging and offering, it took a few reiterations. Like, I had to figure out what was the problem that I was really good at solving and how I could monetize that. And then the second part to that problem that I didn't figure out too much later was, what is the problem my potential clients think they have, and how can I solve that? So in the example, right, I would tell people, hey, I provide sales training. And people would tell me all the time, well, I don't need sales training. My team's great. I don't need sales training. Okay. And I'm doing well in sales training. So then it was, I help your business scale. Well, yeah,
and that's always a lie. But anyway.
Yes, 100% a lie, right? 100% a lie. So then it was, let me rephrase this to, okay, I help scale your small business. So then I would scale small businesses through implementing sales training. So I didn't sales training, was scaling a small business. And that really helped. And then it became to, let me completely revamp your sales and marketing process, which was now, let me give you sales training and let me teach you how to get leads calling you, which is marketing. And when I added that component of, do you want more leads and more sales? To this day, I still don't hear no. Yes, I want more leads, I want more sales. So it took me a couple of reiterations to perfect that offering.
Do you ask them if they want more leads or more sales, or both?
Both. You want more leads and you want more sales? And the answer is yes.
Yeah.
If you want more leads and you want more sales, then come work with me. It's literally which was really simple, because it's simple now, but it wasn't simple to develop, because I was so set, like, oh, I want to revamp the way you do sales. And it was just such a no, my team is great. My team is great. And I'm like, well, the results don't lie. Your team's not great. Because if they were great, you wouldn't have called me. Let's just kind of start there. But to make people feel better, I was like, okay, let's revamp this whole process. And then to identify what to charge. In that analogy you used of your colleague doing jiu-jitsu, I definitely undercharged the first few clients. And when I had one of the clients that I undercharged keep retaining me over and over and over, and I slowly started resenting working for them because I kept charging more on each additional client. I'm like, let me find out where the breaking point is.
What was the retainer? Were they 90-day sprints kind of thing, or what?
Correct.
What were they
renewing? Yeah. 3 months. 3 months of working with me. And so each new additional client, I would press the envelope, say, hey, what can I charge more? Where's this happy spot that I'm at?
Yeah.
And so that was really how I found my spot. And what I learned in that process, when I charged a low price, it was naturally low perceived value. So yeah, maybe I felt okay getting people, and somebody wanted a great price or a great deal. The work I would do for a low price and a high price was exactly the same. So the only person that was hurting was myself. Mm-hmm. So I was doing the same quality of work, the same deliverables, the same amount of intensity. And so then, I was like, look, I'm gonna start charging more because I know I can deliver results. And when I started charging more, the first was that sticker shock of, am I really going to quote this? But all it took was one person to say yes. And when I got that person results, that became my case study. And I just repeated that story over and over and over. And now to this day, I have multiple case studies of results that we implemented for people through different changes. And I even now with my clients, when they continue retaining me, it's if I don't make significantly more than you've paid me for the 3 months, you should fire me. And it seems to have been working so far.
So do you still keep it about the same insofar as like what you do in the length of time and then let them renew?
No, we've added layers. So when I first came out, I had just one offer. Like, this is how you work with me. This is what I do. Now, as I've gotten busier and now I have a team, now we have structured tier. So I have a higher tier, a middle tier, and a lower tier. And so like the middle tier is my old high tier. And if somebody, I have some clients that we implement tons of change, but they still want access to me, or they still want access to some advising and consulting, then I'll drop them down to a lower tier. And from there, like I don't have a high turnover rate. It's either a mid tier, low tier. High tier is more hands-on, and that's more project based. So I had one of my clients had a 5-figure retainer, and the project to train and develop and bring their people up to speed took 9 months. And at the end of the 9 months, we chatted and we brought them down to a middle tier, and still do consulting, still do advising. I'm not hands-on in the sales training anymore.
Did you know it was going to be 9 months, or was it just three-month retainers and you just kept going until it was done?
I had told them from the beginning of what they wanted to do. I was like, hey, realistically, this is going to take 6 months to a year. You have a really complex process. There's some trial and error that's going to take place because you have a lot of moving parts. But if you believe in me, I believe in you. I'll get my hands on. And they agreed to 90 days. 90 days turned to 9 months. And, they're still with me as of this day.
Yeah. Cool. Who was your first hire?
Very first hire. My executive assistant was my very first hire.
Like stateside or overseas?
Stateside, yeah. My executive assistant, she was my very first hire. She was a high school teacher that became a stay-at-home mom, was looking to work from home. Got connected through a mutual source. Said, hey, I'm developing this new company. I am barely developing systems and processes. I spell horribly and just all the reasons why you shouldn't work with me. But she came to work with me, helped build the company to where it's at.
Is she local or remote?
Chicago. She's remote.
Okay.
She's Chicago. I'm Bakersfield. So that was like hire number one. And then from there, I built a team from I have an SDR, actually 2 SDRs. I have social media team, copywriter. So I have different people in places. Most are remote. My SDR is overseas right now. Right now we're looking to bring in a stateside SDR or apprentice. I haven't really pinpointed exactly, but I'm at that point in my business where I need another me that can deliver at my caliber or close enough so I can add a few more clients on top. That's kind of the next pivotal hire for our company.
Yeah, cool. How do you get business now?
3 ways. We outbound, paid ads, and networking. It's super simple, right? So the outbound, we're active on LinkedIn. We're active on email. We're active at different trade shows or conventions. If I get the opportunity to speak somewhere, speaking that, I kind of consider half outbound, half inbound. So we're pretty robust and aggressive there. We look for our client avatars, and we're pretty active on reaching out. Inbound, we run some paid ads and paid campaigns to get booked calls for whatever the lead magnet we're trying to run, whatever the offer may be. So we'll get paid ads, and right now we have a pretty decent conversion rate.
Where are you running them?
Right now, the paid ads, we either social media or Google native ads, depending on the offer. Social media is a little bit more of a direct call to action ad, but I nurture in Google. So I nurture through Google ads. So let's just say, I'll reveal the secret sauce. Let's say I want to work with web designers and graphic designers and video production designers, all in the Orange County space. So now that's going to be who I'm going to target. So my team's going to get together and say, okay, here we're going to identify our prospect list. We go through the different platform and tools online to reach out. And now we'll run a native Google ad campaign specifically to that industry. So now we're paying for attention through Google ads in that segment, in that community. We allow that to nurture for a little bit. Then we run another ad campaign, either a YouTube blog or a YouTube blog or a podcast blog in the same community. So we start running that on a blitz. So now there's the ad, what I'm doing, what I'm selling. There's the ad, here's my podcast free value, or here's my YouTube video free value. And then we nurture in the SDR. Now we start calling and sending case studies and emails. And that's how we go about booking calls.
Nice. It's like a system. Imagine that.
It is definitely a system. It's a system we duplicate. We duplicate it for for all my clients. I'm like, hey, let's put a system in place. Let's duplicate it. Let's get people to book a call with you. That's why I tend to favor my service providers, because I'm like, if you have to book a call with me for me to explain or do a discovery call and see if you're the right fit, then you are who I want to work with. If I can purchase your product or services online in the form like an e-com business, there's probably somebody better equipped to work with you. It's not that I don't know how. It's just I don't want to. So maybe it is. I don't know. Like, it's not my zone of genius. I feel like my zone of genius truly is the service provider that says, "Hey, I'm interested in having a conversation with you. Let's talk." And they say, "Yes, let's talk. What do we say now? Like, how do we convert this one conversation to two conversations to a sale?"
Yeah. I'm kind of the same. Like I do best when humans get to actually speak, ideally meet, but can sell remotely, but it's got to be a more of a complex sale, some strategy, some creativity, sizing up the offer.
Yeah.
I can do copywriting and segmentation, all that crap, but yeah, let's talk.
That's it. That is it. Since I recently have been making a push in my own local community. And so I've been doing my discovery calls in person, which, man, feels good. I have not, I built my business remote. So, I have my first client was on the East Coast. Like, I had clients really all over the country and the world at a certain point in time. And so recently I was like, let me put a focus on a local presence in my own Bakersfield Central Valley community. And since we started, the same strategy I shared with you for Orange County, we're running it locally in Kern County. And my discovery calls have now been in person. Someone reaches out, we go through the process, either a phone call or a quick Zoom call. And when I'm like, hey, I live here, you want to have this conversation in person? It's always yes. Great. I'll be there Tuesday. I'll be there Wednesday. I'll be there Thursday. And so, I right now in my local community, that's where I said I need to find my apprentice, because right now I'm sales closer and deliverable person. So I need to find my apprentice. We're a few deals away from having somebody I could pay well and be on my team.
Do you find, is it better to go to them rather than like meet at a neutral place, Starbucks or something?
I prefer to go to their place of business only if they're comfortable enough to be vulnerable. So that's one of the things that I'll ask. If, I say, hey, I don't mind coming to your business, but, because of the nature of what you've reached out to me for, the nature of what we're talking about, I want you to be okay to be completely transparent and honest. Can you do that at your business? If someone says they can't, then we'll meet at a neutral place. But I set the precedence, because one of the first things that I ask somebody is, why'd you agree to meet with me? Like, what are you hoping to learn? And I follow, as I dive deeper, whatever it is, usually something comes up on, I'm not making enough sales. I don't have enough money in my business account. My marketing something's wrong that they don't want their employees to hear.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. If they can't, if it's a small office or something, then you got to get them away from that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's cool. So is there any people like are getting wrong that you help them with, or is it just the fundamentals and having the discipline to follow the process?
No, I definitely think there's something that people get wrong. I think the biggest mistake that salespreneurs are making right now is the way they're selling isn't converting the way it should be. Meaning they're either overly aggressive, where they're selling the way maybe you and I grew up selling, with this hyper focused, hyper aggressive, pound your pavement, always be closing mantra. Maybe they're not closing enough. They want to be this likable person and just have a good conversation and not know how to convert. I won't say the names of the sales training programs or influencers, but there's some celebrity sales trainers that teach these programs that people go and spend thousands of dollars to learn. And then they go and try to implement these strategies in their business, and it's not working. So usually I come in, I always tell people, hey, I'm always the backup. I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, if I was XYZ celebrity, you would probably call me first because that's who you called. You're not getting the results. So let me help you out, because I'm not saying that what they're doing is bad or wrong. I'm just simply saying it's not applicable in the fashion of what you're doing it in. And there's certain things that certain personalities can do. You're not that personality, and neither is your consumer. So let's start there. So I always go into, like, they typically come to me because they're not converting the way they're supposed to be. And that's the number one problem I see.
Yeah, I like that. I'm the backup because it's so true. And it hurts my soul how many people have come to me. And yeah, these are celebrities. These are people you probably have their book on the shelves, and $10,000 and $20,000 certification programs.
Yep.
And they're coming to me. I'm like, so you're XYZ certified, and you're not getting leads, but your job is to help people get leads, but you can't get leads. I'm like,
yeah.
oh, I
Oh
get
yeah.
so mad.
There was a business owner. I felt terrible for her. I helped her out for a little bit. Really, I probably did more discovery calls with her. She struck my heart. She inherited her business. Her husband passed away unexpectedly, and she went to celebrities sales training program for a lot of money to help her teach her how to close sales in this business. And all she picked up was a big credit card bill, and hadn't figured out how to close and generate new business. And the business was bleeding money out. And it was just, the cookie cutter programs, they don't work. And when I say that, and I don't know if I've said that on YouTube, I've said that on social media, and I definitely been bashed by a fan of said celebrities. But at the end of the day, there's not one program that works for everybody. Like, when people say that, I think it's an absolute crock. Like, it's not. Industries are different, personalities are different, buyers are different. So if you're going to come with this cookie cutter approach and sell somebody like, hey, follow this cookie cutter approach, it works every time, I don't know if that's accurate. So it's one of the reasons we keep. I do like the personal touch I have with my clients, which is, like I said, the apprentice I'm looking to hire is really important to me, because I get in the weeds with the clients, and we sales calls. I break down. I do Monday morning on the sales call. I'm like, here, I don't understand why you said this. I don't understand why your prospect said this. And I tell people it's probably uncomfortable for the first few times you hear me breaking you down. I said, but you're gonna get better, and it's not gonna be uncomfortable anymore, and the results will change.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm going to start coaching just salespeople that do jujitsu.
There's some mental fortitude that comes with that I think salespeople need.
It's just they understand the analogies and sticking with it, right? Because I've never done like one-offs. I tell people, it's like, I can come in and do a little boot camp for y'all, and it'll be a rah-rah, and but it's like we got to have something on the back end, to make sure some of this stuff sticks. Cause it's like sales training it's like jujitsu because and I was told this and I've experienced it, if you train for 6 months, you'll be able to pretty much handle any body that is untrained.
Mhm.
Like, so if you're out on the street and drunk guy and you've trained for 6 months, maybe a year, you'll handle that dude. You'll be okay. So that's your standard run of the mill sales training. But the problem is in sales, I mean, it's rare you're going up against an untrained prospect. They've been burned on some programs before, or they've had some decent programs before, and for whatever reason, maybe they didn't renew or whatever. So they're not untrained. So now it's like UFC, right? It's like if you're a black belt in jiu-jitsu, but now you're fighting a guy who's taller and is a striker. Okay, your jiu-jitsu will still submit them, but you got to change how you close the distance.
Yep.
To get close enough to get them to the ground. And that's where that 10 or 20% change, that customization comes in, and it makes all the difference in the world, right? Because the freaking space shuttle blew up for what, a little $10 or $18 O-ring, little whatever, $50 part blew up a multi-billion-dollar and killed 7 people. So little things matter. So,
Yeah, I always tell people when they look at sales training is not an event. Like you like, it's not a one-time event. Sales training is an ongoing, continuous educational experience because things are always changing, always evolving. And it's funny, like you asked me what made that gal in medical so successful. She was a sponge and always learned. And I look back at like my own individual contributor career. I was a sponge, man. I learned constantly. Like it was always evolving, always learning, always finding like the next way or the new way or is my way accurate? Like I never listened to somebody who was teaching the art of sales or human communication or human psychology, like through the lens of like, oh, I got this. I was always like, well, let me hear it. Maybe I'll hear something new. Maybe I'll hear something I haven't heard before. Maybe I'll hear it in a different way. And that, when an entrepreneur has that mantra in their business with their sales team, business grows because of it.
Right. Yep, for sure. So who should be reaching out to you? Like small business owners as well? Like can a W-2, can somebody in your old position, can you help them, or is it more small businesses?
Yeah, I'll be really transparent. But majority of my work right now is with the small business owners that are either founder-led sales teams or founder one level removed, meaning you have a sales team, but the founder's still somewhat involved or has direct oversight of the sales team. So in those situations, that W-2 person, it would be advantageous. I would usually position the person. Let's talk to the owner and let's get a real system in place. Do I accept W-2 like people from my old industry or for like a general sales training program? I will. It has to be the right fit. I mean, I definitely will take the discovery call and have the conversation with that person. And how I am with you right now, I'm pretty transparent with them and saying that majority of the work I do right now is with this entrepreneur small business space. But the W-2 people, I mean, the W-2 people that I coach typically have know me from, like, I don't market to them. They're like, right. They know me. Like, they're coming to me through a friend. They're coming to me through LinkedIn, and they're asking for help on something, or they'll have a recorded sales call and they'll want some feedback. It's just, I'll definitely work with those folks in that capacity.
So the website, so it's discoveryscript.com, right?
Yeah. So what I put together, one of the biggest things that we teach and we reframe with every client that works with me is, what's your first initial interaction with your prospect look like? From the moment someone says, I'm interested in working with you, what does that process look like? And so I put a script together. It's called Communication That Converts. It's the same 7 questions that I've utilized for years, the same 7 questions that I've taught over the years to numerous industries, and say, hey, if you go through this series of 7 questions, you're going to uncover so much information that by the time it's time to pitch, you won't even have to pitch, because you're going to be perceived as the expert to solve the solution or to deliver the solution for the problem you just uncovered based on the conversation you just had. So we put that together at discoveryscript.com. You can click the link, download. We'd love to share the script with you. In terms of myself, my home website's anthonypgarcia.com. I'm on social media under Anthony Garcia INC. And that's kind of how you get a hold of me.
Very cool. Well, I am linking there. I was just checking that out. Got links to both. Got links to your Instagram and your LinkedIn. So very cool, man. Well, if you have one of those meetings in Temecula, come see me.
Will do, brother. Absolutely.
All right. Anthony P. Garcia, all the way from Bakersfield, man. Thanks for coming on the show. It's been great.
Wes, thanks for having me, my friend.
All right, man. Have a good one.